Alright, so now we're going to talk about the ATP cycle, which means we need to talk about ATP itself. So I've referred to this before. I think you've probably heard about it in your biology class by now. But this is what I call, this is the cash money. This is the cash currency of energy in the cell. So we've talked about, debit cards and savings accounts, and this is the fast cash on the ground. This is what moves energy around. And so ATP stands for adenosine triphosphate. So it turns out that the whole backbone of the energy economy in the cell is built on a nucleotide, or a nucleic acid. So we've got a nucleic acid here, adenosine. It's got the sugar phosphate backbone, and so this would be a nucleotide right here. But then we add 2, 3. So there's 3 phosphates to it. So we add more phosphates to it. Adenosine diphosphate, ADP, would look like this. ATP has the third one. And so what happens is we can add or remove that third phosphate. So when we add it on, energy is stored in the molecule. When we break it off, it releases energy. So it can be used in proteins to help drive energy for reactions that they're mediating. So enzymes can use ATP. It can also be used to phosphorylate things. So this can very easily add a phosphate to just about anything. So this can very quickly allow for molecules to be primed for a reaction by phosphorylating them, by adding a phosphate via a condensation reaction. So it can break off of this and be added to something else. And so this is just hydrolysis and condensation. Boom, 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 back and forth. That's all we're doing. And so, this is the, it's used to provide energy for cellular processes. And so this is what our whole respiration system is doing. So we're not generating CO2 for our survival, we're generating ATP. We are going through the whole process of breaking down glucose, fats, and sugars to generate ATP. If we fail to generate ATP for, I think it's like 30 seconds, we're done, we're out. So we are constantly replenishing it because it's constantly being used. So, it's, do I want to call any particular famous people out for being bad with money? I don't think I will. But quite often you see people just blow, you're like, how did that person spend $100 million? Well, that's like the ATP cycle is. Well, they were earning money, so they were spending it as fast as they were earning it. And that's what we do with our ATP. We're using it as fast as we're making it. If we use it too fast, we got to slow down, or we got to figure out a way to make more. And we can kind of only make it so fast. So generally, you just have to start resting. You got to catch your breath, if you will, literally. So it does this, but it can also be used to add phosphates to other molecules. We're not going to talk about this too much, but just be aware. So it can be used for phosphorylation. And so that's kind of like, oh, I've got to process a sugar. Well, there's intermediate steps where we actually slap some phosphates on the sugar. And that's like, we just loaded dynamite on the building that we're going to detonate. We're just going to break that thing apart. And that's how we do it. We prime it with phosphates and then boom, it goes off. So, the reaction looks something like this. So if we use ATP for energy, we're going to get ADP, adenosine diphosphate, 2 phosphates, so one breaks off. We get an inorganic phosphate. You can thank biologists for that notation. And we're going to get 7.3 kcals of energy per mole of ATP that we use. So this guy right here, that's phosphate. And this is adenosine diphosphate. I think I gave myself enough room to write it. We'll see. So it has 2 phosphates. So we just break this bond right in here. We do a hydrolysis reaction and we net energy. And we use that energy for whatever it's needed for. could be getting used in DNA replication or transcription or translation or anything where we have to put energy in. Transport through the cell membrane. And there's a lot of processes that use ATP for energy. So, if we are constantly using our ATP, how do we replenish it? Well, this reaction is what we say reversible, so we can do the opposite. We can go ADP plus phosphate plus, I don't know what it would be, probably approximately 7.3 kcals of energy, and we get an ATP and a water. So, the reverse process replenishes ATP. So that's why it's a cycle. You've got ATP plus water. You break them apart, you get ADP plus phosphate. You can go back and forth. And so over here, 7.3 kcals of energy. And over here, we got to put that energy in. And so where does that energy come from on the replenishment process? Well, this is mostly done in the mitochondria. There's a little bit that happens elsewhere we'll talk about when we get to respiration. But this is mostly in the mitochondria where we're replenishing our ATP. Then it goes out in the cell, does its stuff, comes back as ADP, gets pushed back into being ATP, and it just goes back and forth. So the same adenosine can just be cycling through infinitely. So it gets used, gets replenished, gets used for energy, gets replenished, goes out, gets used for energy, gets replenished, back, just over and over and over again. And so this energy is from respiration. And the energy that leaves is for cellular functions. Keep it vague because I don't want to list everything. It's basically everything that gets used for until we can photosynthesize. Actually, photosynthesis generates ATP as well. So, if I remember right, it can. I think it's been a while. That was literally a chapter in biochemistry where the guy was just like, read it. We don't have time. It'll be on the test. That happened to me. So that chapter's a little hit and miss. And it's too bad, too, because I was actually really interested in photosynthesis, and I don't remember anything about it now. But don't feel bad for me. I worked hard to forget that stuff, so it's okay. And so this is, this is the ATP cycle. So it looks a lot like the carbon cycle. It's different molecules, but it turns out, biological systems really like to recycle. And this is a molecule that's built off of something that was supposed to be used for like RNA. And you just start stacking extra phosphates on it, and suddenly, boom, it's the energy currency. So that's interesting. And it's something that you'll see quite often. And so generally when this ATP gets used, it's for cellular functions, often anabolic processes. It's energy that's used to build larger molecules. And so respiration is a catabolic process. We break molecules apart to release energy to make the ATP. So this is what we use it for, building. We break stuff to build stuff. It's like how you have to do demo before you do any renovation in a house or something. That's what we're doing here. And we're going to talk more about this, especially this respiration part. This is the last topic. This is what we're building towards. We are getting close. The shark is circling tight in the water now. We are getting so close to respiration. So we're going to talk about that soon enough. It's coming up, but we got a few more things to talk about. So like obviously we had to talk about all of, atoms and stuff, and now we've talked about energy, and we're going to build on that a little bit. So this is the ATP cycle. This is how we use energy in the cell. This is a balanced chemical equation for the replenishment. I showed you a balanced chemical equation for the use of it, of ATP. I showed you the structure, which you don't have to know. Obviously I really like drawing structures. My favorite part is I draw them on the board, and everybody's frantically, when it's in class, they're frantically drawing the same thing. And so, how could I resist how could I resist springing that on a room full of people, right? What kind of person would I be not to do that? And so, 1, 2, 3 phosphates. We got our, it's like we have a piece of our sugar phosphate backbone with the nucleic acid, and it's amazing, right? Like you see this and you go, oh, that's a piece of RNA, because that is ribose, not deoxyribose, but ribose. And then it's like, oh, that's a precursor for ATP. Oh, I just found a $100 bill of energy in the cell. Like that's what it is. All right, so next we're going to start talking about one of the crown jewels of chemistry. You'll be so sick of hearing me say that by the end of the next 2 videos. And that is equilibrium. So it's a tricky topic. I broke it up over 2 videos, or I will be breaking it up over 2 videos. So just hang in there with it. And the ATP stuff is key to this section, and it will be very key to stuff we talk about later, as well as just being alive, if that wasn't clear. All right.